Nashville.
This is NBC Nightly News. With John Chancellor in New York, Chief Washington Correspondent Roger Mudd, and tonight's special segment, the United States and Central America.
Good evening. A seaborne force of about 4,000 troops from Argentina today invaded the Falkland Islands and seized control of that British Crown colony. Argentina has long claimed sovereignty over the islands, which lie in the South Atlantic 400 miles northeast of Cape Horn. An amateur radio operator in the capital city of Stanley reported a 3-hour gun battle, but the Argentine government said only one of its men was killed. No word on the 80 British Marines there. We have reports from London, where there is outrage, and Buenos Aires, where there were celebrations.
Thousands of Argentines took to the streets of Buenos Aires to celebrate the invasion. The government told them there would be no retreat from the island. There are about 200 tiny islands in the Falkland chain. About 1,800 people live there, most of them British subjects called Kelpers who speak English. The islands have been the center of a sovereignty dispute between Argentina and Britain for almost 150 years. Potentially rich oil deposits around the island make them important to both countries. The Argentine forces landed from a naval task force like this one, shown in recent maneuvers. The nation's biggest aircraft carrier, the May 25th, took part. British troops have been based on the island of East Falkland since Britain colonized the island in 1833. The Antarctic support vessel Endurance was the only British ship in port. Argentina denied reports that it had been sunk. In Buenos Aires, President Leopoldo Galtieri went on television and proclaimed the invasion a success. He said Britain had provoked Argentina, but he held out the possibility of negotiations. The president declared today a holiday. The street celebrations were in sharp contrast to scenes of anti-government rioting earlier this week. Critics of the government said the invasion was intended in large part to divert public attention from economic and political problems at home. Megan O'Reilly, NBC News, Buenos Aires.
In London, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher held 2 emergency cabinet meetings. She called the invasion unprovoked aggression, and Britain broke off diplomatic relations with Argentina. The Foreign Secretary, Lord Carrington, admitted diplomacy had failed.
Well, whenever you fail to solve something diplomatically, it's defeat. And it's not just a defeat for me, it's a defeat for the peace that we're seeking to maintain.
Parliament was united in condemning the invasion, although some thought the Thatcher government should have been better prepared.
I do believe that the indications of that tin pot fascist junta in the Argentine, they always do this sort of thing when they're having trouble at home.
In Portsmouth, southwest England, a major naval task force is being mobilized.
We're preparing a naval task force which is large enough and powerful enough to deal with any problems that it might meet in the South Atlantic. We have not yet given the orders for that task force to sail, and that is a matter we will be considering.
Many Britons learned of the invasion only after it was over.
Well, we've got to move in. We must move in.
Using aggression to fight aggression is not going to help at all.
Soldiers at several military bases have been packing. At military airfields, troop transports took off all day to undisclosed locations. The House of Commons meets tomorrow in emergency session. The first meeting on a Saturday since the Suez Crisis in 1956. But the British don't have too many options to discuss. If diplomatic pressure fails, then military action would seem necessary if Britain wants to reclaim the Falklands. Steve Mallory, NBC News, London.
The British Defense Minister was quoted as saying today that a naval force is now in the South Atlantic, but he didn't say where. At the United Nations, Britain asked the Security Council to tell Argentina to get out of the Falkland Islands. The Argentine delegate said what happened was not an invasion, in his view, but a return of the islands to their rightful Argentinian sovereignty. In Washington, concern. Here's Roger Mudd.
Other than deploring and urging and condemning, there was very little the United States could do in the island dispute. But the White House did announce that last night, President Reagan put in a telephone call to Buenos Aires in an attempt to reverse the Argentine invasion. Judy Woodruff reports.
Last night, the president spent 50 minutes on the phone with Argentine President Galtieri. Working through an interpreter, Mr. Reagan tried to talk Galtieri out of the invasion, warning that the use of force would be met by force from the British, stressing that Prime Minister Thatcher was determined and would not give in, and adding the use of force would wreck recently improving U.S. relations with Argentina because the American people and the Congress would regard it as an act of aggression. Galtieri, for his part, thanked Mr. Reagan, but said time had run out since the British refused to give up sovereignty. Today, the president expressed regret that his efforts to stop the Argentinians had failed.
I wish it had not gone forward. I understand they have landed there, and I did talk to the president of Argentina and trying to persuade him not to go forward with that.
And what action would the U.S. take?
Just to be of help if we can in this dispute.
At the State Department, a spokesman called on the Argentinians to pull out.
We've made clear that we deplore the use of force by the government of Argentina to resolve this dispute. We've called on Argentina to cease immediately hostilities and to withdraw its military forces from the Falkland Islands.
Officials refuse to say publicly who the U.S. believes has claim to the Falklands, but as one official put it, we wish the British had pulled out some time ago. The president got involved because the administration was anxious to avoid having two of its key allies in military conflict. The British, our strongest ally in Europe, and Argentina, a key supporter of American policy in Central America. Judy Woodruff, NBC News, the White House.
As an example of how the administration is trying to play the episode down the middle, State Department spokesman Romberg tried to avoid using either the British name, the Falkland Islands, or the Argentine name, the Malvinas Islands. He simply called them the islands.
Before you buy a new car, Oldsmobile suggests you consider this number. 12.8, the annual percentage financing rate now available to qualified retail buyers on every new Olds. On Forenza, Omega, Cutlass Sierra, Cutlass Supreme, Delta 88, 98, and Toronado. Order or buy from stock now. And if you take delivery through May 31st, you could save hundreds. See your participating Olds dealer. 12.8% financing means more total Olds value today.
You've got a ticket on the Heartburn Express. If one Rolaids tablet can't cut the mustard, you should know about one Tums and one Rolaids tablet both neutralize their stomach acid in seconds. But when your stomach churns out 1/3 more acid, Tums can still absorb it. Rolaids can't. Not in seconds, not ever. That's why you should switch to
Unemployment last month rose to 9% of the workforce. Since the end of the Second World War, it has been that high only once before, during the bad recession of 1975. The figures mean that 9,900,000 people are now actively looking for jobs. Another 1,300,000 are listed as discouraged workers who have quit looking for work. In the 15 years since they began counting the discouraged, that figure has never been higher. Here's our economics correspondent, Irving R. Levine.
The number of unemployed Americans looking for jobs increased by 280,000 in March. In Norfolk, Virginia, they crowded into the federal building when applications were invited for possible future jobs. In Birmingham, Alabama, hundreds camped out all night to apply for 30 temporary factory jobs.
Sheila Green. Sheila Green.
Even in Houston, as in other Sunbelt cities previously untouched by the recession, the unemployment office suddenly is crowded.
I've never seen it like this down here in Houston. It's always been a boom town all the time I've been down here.
Similarly in Atlanta, the Scottsdale textile mill, owned by the same family for 3 generations, is closing down. 500 people laid off. Everywhere it's worst for black teenagers, 46% unemployed. At a congressional hearing, the government's chief statistician, Janet Norwood, predicted a further growth in unemployment, which led Senator Kennedy sarcastically to nominate the president for an Oscar.
Perhaps there should have been one for creating the highest interest rates, highest deficits, highest unemployment.
White House officials say things will improve once the Reagan program has more time to work. Treasury Secretary Regan says he's positive unemployment won't go much higher, not to 10%. But some economists say the unemployment rate will hit 10% before it starts dropping. Irving R. Levine, NBC News, Washington.
Other unemployment figures, the key indicator, adult men, is nearly 8%. For blacks, the jobless rate is 18%. In the construction industry, unemployment is nearly 18%. It's 14% for agricultural workers. And the worst off state is Michigan, where the unemployment rate is now more than 16%. More news from Washington now, and Roger Mudd.
President Reagan today decided to slow down the trend, which began after World War II, toward opening up government files. The order Mr. Reagan signed today was not as restrictive as the draft his aides originally wrote, but one critic said today the message is still classify, classify, classify. Here's John Palmer.
The 19-page executive order signed by the president today makes it much easier for the administration to invoke national security to classify government documents top secret, secret, and confidential. The new order states information shall be considered for classification if it concerns the vulnerabilities or capabilities of systems, installations, projects, or plans relating to national security. A catch-all phrase which gives the Reagan administration broad new powers to classify documents. President Reagan said the new order would not hide violations of the law, inefficiency, or administrative error, or prevent public release of information that does not require national security protection. But Representative Glenn English, chairman of the House Government Information and Individual Rights Subcommittee, disagrees.
Well, I think the bottom line is that the American public is going to know a lot less about the operations of its government. It's going to be a lot less informed, and it's going to be a lot more difficult to make good judgments about the operation of that government.
Administration officials deny the new executive order has been made deliberately vague to make it easier to classify government documents secret, but they concede it is designed to make it more difficult for the courts to order documents declassified and made public. John Palmer, NBC News, at the White House.
The State Department has denied the Irish Protestant leader Ian Paisley permission to visit Bob Jones University in South Carolina on grounds that his presence might be inflammatory. When the news reached Bob Jones today, the chancellor of the fundamentalist school, Bob Jones Jr., urged the students to pray that the Lord smite Secretary of State Haig, smite him, hip and thigh, heart and lungs, and all there is to him. At last report, the secretary was unsmitten.
When we tell you Michelin radials last and last. That's no surprise. When we tell you Michelin radials save gas. That's no surprise. But when we tell you you can get Michelins for about the same price as other leading radials. Now that's a surprise. But it's true. We're America's fastest growing tire company. We make the tire you need at a price you can afford. See your Michelin dealer and prices set for your car. You'll be pleasantly surprised. Michelin. We put America on radials.
Our competition writes reviews of the theater. At Newsweek, we write reviews with theater. Reviews that bring the theater to life. Reviews written by the only Newsweekly critic to win the prestigious George G. Nathan Award, Jack Kroll. We don't fit the mold. We break it. Newsweek.
Something smells good. Oh, you made coffee.
Yeah, and it tastes great.
Of course. It's Maxwell House Master Blend.
Isn't that supposed to save us money?
Mm-hmm. It only tastes expensive.
Master Blend, a special blend of 100% coffee. We make a special way so you can save money. Master Blend, it only tastes expensive.
Israeli troops shot and wounded 4 Druze Arab protesters in 2 towns on the recently annexed Golan Heights today. Israeli officers said in both incidents troops fired after rocks were thrown at them. Soviet officials refused to comment today on a report that Leonid Brezhnev may have had a mild stroke a week ago on his way home from a trip to Tashkent. An article in the Washington Post also said Brezhnev reportedly suffered a mild heart attack in late February. Jim Compton has a report.
Brezhnev's health deteriorated visibly on his exhausting 4-day tour of Tashkent last week.
Western diplomats say he may have undertaken the demanding trip just to prove that he could. But Soviet television was forced to show frequent and long shots of the audience to avoid picturing the ailing Soviet leader. As Brezhnev wearied, several official meetings were canceled, and he was last seen in public at an airport ceremony as he departed for Moscow. Throughout that ceremony, Soviet television took pains not to picture a weakened Brezhnev. There is no confirmation here of reports that he grew seriously ill during the flight to Moscow. Western diplomats believe that Brezhnev is hospitalized, and that this man, Konstantin Chernenko, a Politburo member, is in control for the time being. Chernenko has apparently taken on the duties of Mikhail Suslov, the 80-year-old party ideological chief who died in February, though with none of Suslov's enormous prestige. Chernenko is widely expected to take power if Brezhnev cannot continue in office. The days when Leonid Brezhnev could easily marshal political consent on any issue, including his own succession, appear to have passed. And no one in the current Soviet leadership is of such stature that he is assured lasting power in the post-Brezhnev era. James Compton, NBC News, Moscow.
Hurricane-force winds slammed into parts of Colorado today, piling huge snowdrifts in the higher elevations and creating blinding dust storms elsewhere. The winds arrived with an eastward-bound storm, which has already dropped 12 feet of snow in the California mountains. Steve Gray of Denver station KOA has a report.
The wind started in the morning and didn't give up through the afternoon. Gusts in Denver were reported around 70 miles an hour, with winds blowing at more than 100 miles an hour in the foothills west of the city. There was one reported gust of more than 140 miles an hour north of Denver. Damage was widespread. Plate glass windows were shattered and billboards were blown over. Crews were also kept busy removing fallen trees, which cut off power lines and damaged homes.
Well, I was standing in the back watching this tree, knowing it was going to come down. Nothing I could do about it. It made a big noise. I thought it blew up the house. It just missed me by seconds.
Despite all the damage, officials say there have been no major injuries. Other forecasters are predicting diminishing winds through the night. Steve Gray for NBC News in Denver.
Inside this box is one color that does more for your pet than any flea and tick color Hearts ever made. The Hearts 2-in-1 Plus Nighttime Safety Reflecting Color. The first flea and tick killing color that reflects headlights from oncoming cars up to 400 feet away. That's longer than a football field. Nighttime safety plus 5 months of flea and tick protection in one Hearts color. The Hearts 2-in-1 Plus Nighttime Safety Reflecting Color. Now the famous Hearts flea and tick killer can be a lifesaver too.
Are you a saltaholic? Do you think most everything needs salt? Then you're a saltaholic. Like most Americans, you eat more than 20 times the salt your body needs. Now, with new No Salt, you can have the flavor of salt without salt. No Salt tastes like salt, but there's no salt in No Salt. You can shake No Salt, cook with No Salt, No Salt, and shake the salt habit.
I'm Johnny Bench. This is Krylon Spray Paint, the other leading national brand. And here comes my fast pitch, so watch close. Krylon Special Formula goes on smooth, just like a professional finish. And just 12 minutes later, it's dry to the touch. No runs, no drips, no errors. The other brand's still tacky after 1 hour. Let's see it again. Krylon dry after 12 minutes, other brand still tacky after 1 hour. Did you catch that? Krylon, for a smooth, fast professional finish.
Roberto D'Aubuisson, the leader of the most popular right-wing party in El Salvador, was talking today about the left-wing rebel groups which are fighting there. He said, "We will pass an amnesty law, but we won't accept a dialogue with people who won't accept democracy." D'Aubuisson also promised to carry out the reforms which have been started in El Salvador. Last night in our special segment, we looked at the people and geography of Central America. Tonight, Richard Valeriani looks at the history of American involvement there.
Nicaraguan exiles training in Florida. A buildup of American military advisors in Honduras, next door to Nicaragua. Many people are asking if the United States is preparing to intervene militarily in Central America once again.
There are no plans to send American combat troops into action any place in the world.
But Latin American expert Abraham Lowenthal of the Woodrow Wilson Institute in Washington says the perspective is different in Managua.
But from the Nicaraguan standpoint,
You know, that country has never been invaded by anyone but the United States. And they are probably conditioned to worrying about what an administration might do that reserves the right to use force, that wants to keep all its options open. So from their standpoint, they don't have to be crazy to be fearful.
U.S. Marines intervened repeatedly in Nicaragua's internal affairs during the early 1900s to put down rebellions and to protect American commercial interests. Not until 1933 did they withdraw for good, leaving behind a dictatorial dynasty established by Anastasio Somoza, a U.S.-trained National Guard commander. It was President Theodore Roosevelt who provided the institutional rationale for intervention. His corollary to the Monroe Doctrine claimed America's right to exercise police power in this hemisphere. When the building of the Panama Canal was blocked by Colombia, Roosevelt simply helped carve out a new nation, Panama, and then made a treaty with it. Under General Smedley Butler, the Marines turned the Caribbean into an American lake during the early part of the century. Butler boasted about his role, writing, "I helped make Mexico safe for American oil interests. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the National City Bank boys to collect revenue in. I helped pacify Nicaragua for the International Banking House of Brown Brothers. I brought light to the Dominican Republic for American sugar interests. I helped make Honduras right for American fruit companies." Under President Franklin D. Roosevelt, the United States sought to improve relations with the other countries of this hemisphere. Roosevelt declared a good neighbor policy, and direct military intervention stopped for a while. But in 1954, when Guatemala's left-wing president, Jacobo Arbenz, carried forward a land reform program instituted by his predecessor at the expense of the United Fruit Company, the United States condemned him as pro-communist, a pawn of Moscow. With President Dwight Eisenhower's approval, the CIA went to work organizing, training, and arming an exile force which overthrew the freely elected government of Arbenz. 7 years later, a similar operation failed miserably at the Bay of Pigs in Cuba. An army of Cuban exiles, also organized and trained by the CIA, was quickly overwhelmed by the forces of Fidel Castro. President John F. Kennedy refused to provide air cover for the exiles. After leading a triumphal revolution to power in 1959, Castro drifted steadily into the Soviet orbit, expropriating millions of dollars worth of American property along the way. The specter of Castro haunted the Civil War, which broke out in the nearby Dominican Republic in 1965, when supporters of deposed President Juan Bosch tried to restore him to power. President Lyndon Johnson sent Marines and troopers of the 82nd Airborne to Santo Domingo to restore order, and he left no doubt why.
The American nation cannot, must not, and will not permit the establishment of another communist government in the Western Hemisphere.
It was only 17 years ago that the United States last intervened militarily in the Caribbean. Since then, however, the United States has been severely shaken by an intervention abroad, the one in Vietnam. And the damage done to the national spirit by that experience is clearly affecting any thought of reviving gunboat diplomacy in 1982. Richard Valeriani, NBC News, Washington.
A little Old Spice has a lot of rewards. Old Spice is the clean, fresh, masculine scent so many women love. So even if you love only one woman, you'll love Old Spice, the man's scent so many women love.
Welcome to warm afternoons and Gallo Wine.
Sunny rhyme days with your friends and mine.
Special moments.
The feeling shows. A Gallo toast with the rhyme that flows. Oh, the joy of sharing Gallo wine.
Will we ever have a house like this?
Share the joy of Gallo wine.
For years, people with big lawns have faced the same problem. What to do with the clippings?
Now there's the John Deere 6.5 bushel twin bagger. 2 big hoppers you line with plastic trash bags, so cleanup's neat and easy. It could be the best way ever to take care of your clippings. We think everyone should have one. The twin bagger, available for John Deere lawn tractors and riding mowers.
Klaus von Bülow went back to court in Newport, Rhode Island today to ask for a new trial. Last month, the jury convicted him of twice trying to murder his wife. After that trial, one of von Bülow's lawyers said someone had contacted him with information that would prove von Bülow's innocence, but no mystery witness appeared today. Lee McCarthy reports.
Von Bülow's lawyer Harold Price Barringer moved for a new trial, arguing that the state had never proved that Klaus von Bülow injected his wife with insulin, never proved he possessed the black bag that was critical prosecution evidence.
This case, I believe, illustrates better than any other the hazards of circumstantial evidence.
Prosecutor Stephen Famietti rejected that claim.
The state is confident that all of the evidence and all of the testimony points in one direction, and one direction only, and that is to the guilt of the defendant, Klaus von Bülow.
Judge Thomas Needham then went through a lengthy, detailed review of the evidence and the testimony and agreed with the jury's verdict.
It's not against the evidence, the law, and the weight thereof.
Judge Needham denied the motion for a new trial. The state then moved to have von Bülow's $100,000 bail revoked on the ground that von Bülow might flee the country. The judge wouldn't do that, but he did raise the bail.
I'm going to direct that he post bail in the sum of $500,000, $500,000. That is as large a sum of money that this justice has ever imposed upon a convicted felon. But I feel that this defendant has substantial control of money, has substantial assets.
Von Bülow came prepared. He posted $50,000 in certificates of deposit as surety against the $500,000 bail and was released until his sentencing May 7th. Lee McCarthy, NBC News, Newport, Rhode Island.
And that's Nightly News for this Friday. John Hart will be here tomorrow. And on Monday, a brand new Nightly News. NBC News has appointed two good newsmen to replace me. Tom Brokaw will be here in New York, and Roger Mudd will be in Washington. I can't think of two people more qualified for the job. As for me, after 2,860 of these programs, I'm moving into a job I've wanted for years. I'll be the Nightly News resident commentator, appearing 3 or 4 times a week. What pleases me most is that I don't have to say goodbye, just good night. See you Monday.
On NBC Magazine, the shocking truth about Soviet medicine. Then, would you believe Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier in the biggest con job ever? No! Well, they are, in Let's Do It Again. Would you believe Jimmy Walker is the champ? No! Well, he is, with a little help from his friends. NBC Magazine, followed by Let's Do It Again, Friday.
Coming up in just a minute on the scene at 6, a verdict in the bid rigging trial of 2 paving company executives, and the governor says no to a proposed bridge at Cockrell Bend.
Also in the news tonight, special interest groups sidetrack new rules aimed at protecting Tennesseans from high-rise fires. And Terry Merriman visits 2 of the stars of this weekend's Mule Day festivities in Columbia.
These stories and more news coming up on the scene at 6.
Say, how would you like to win a brand new portable TV? Hey, I'd love to. What do I have to do?
We're giving away 2 black and white Zenith portable TVs every afternoon during the Big Valley and the Great RC TV giveaway. Pick up your